Welcome to episode 42 of the Various and Sundry podcast. I am your host, Matt Harmon, joined in studio, in the vault, here at Grace College and Theological Seminary.
In the vault.
By my good friend, my co-host, my colleague, and the man who is currently teaching more classes than I am right now, John
I did
Sloat.
not realize that. I'm teaching two. How many are you teaching?
Just one right now.
Just one class.
Okay.
Man, to be full-time faculty, what a life.
Yeah, it's just
What a life.
a life of luxury.
Man.
So how are we doing, John?
Well, I just learned that piece of information. We're doing pretty well. It's a cold, rainy, feels like fall morning or day. I guess it's the afternoon here on Monday. But yeah, doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. I'm enjoying our upgrades to our vault studio here.
Yeah, we're absorbing echo with foam on the walls.
Yeah. It looks like a very pointy, speckly mattress pad that they attached to the wall here.
Or a foamy egg carton,
Yeah.
to hold like ostrich eggs or something like that.
Yeah. So who knows if that will be effective. I doubt it'll keep out the drums from the worship arts folks downstairs.
Oh, I think because of the foam, listenership is going to go through the roof.
Yeah. We're investing infrastructure dollars into the podcast.
We're professionals.
Yeah. We didn't pay a dime for that. But so if you want to connect with us, we can be found on Twitter at V&S Pod. You can email the show, variousandsundrypodcast@gmail.com. We have a Facebook page, Various and Sundry Podcast. You can connect with us there. And if you'd really like to do us a solid, we'd love for you to go on to the podcast app and leave us a 5-star rating and a review. Now, we haven't had any reviews this past week, but had a good week of downloads. I feel like
we did all right.
Yeah. And
it's a fine week.
Yeah. And I've noticed looking globally, we tend to skew in the northern hemisphere, apparently, in terms of our downloads. And we did pick up a major country.
Yeah, I mean, I think the largest country in the world?
No, that'd be China.
Really?
Yeah.
Bigger than?
Oh, you're talking about land area.
Yeah, land area.
Yeah, probably. Russia.
Yeah, we picked up Russia. 14 time zones in Russia, I think. Something like that.
Some crazy thing like that. So someone in the Kremlin is listening.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure.
So both excited and terrified by that fact. But so what's going on in the world of sports here, John?
Well, the NFL happened again this week. I don't know. Did you catch any games over the weekend?
I watched the Browns-Steelers.
That wasn't the closest of games. I was excited for that game.
Yeah.
Because it was 4-0 versus 4-1.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the Browns kind of got creamed.
Browns gonna Browns. And they're better than last year for sure. But, the Browns basically, they are a run the ball and then strategically try to strike big plays with the passing game. So if you stop the run and force Baker Mayfield to drop back in the pocket and throw the ball a lot, that's not good for the Browns.
Mm-hmm.
And Baker Mayfield threw an absolutely terrible pick six to Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Very early in the game.
Yeah, where he stared down the receiver, and Minkah Fitzpatrick as the safety probably didn't even move. Like he might have moved like a step to his right to pick the pass off. So, should have seen that there was a guy sitting on the route in any case. But
he was also playing injured.
Yeah, but still.
To Baker's credit, he had a Kevlar vest on while he was playing. No, I don't think it was for
Kevlar?
I believe it was Kevlar. I think I heard that on the telecast.
Are they worried that there are snipers in the stands?
It is. It is a rival team.
Well, wouldn't you think that you wouldn't want to hurt Baker Mayfield? Wouldn't you think that keeping him in there would enhance your chances as the Steelers of being successful on the field?
I don't know. Who's sitting behind Baker?
Case Keenum, I believe.
Case Keenum. And he's had some success.
Yeah. In any case, what's going on with your Jets here, John?
Well, they decided to change things up this week, and they lost to Miami instead of losing to one of the other teams in the division.
Okay.
So.
Okay. And it's my understanding they are the last team in the NFL now without a win.
That sounds right. I don't know that for a fact, but yes, that sounds right. And they just traded away, or they cut Le'Veon Bell.
Yes, who signed with the Chiefs. That seemed like a strange fit to me.
Really?
Yeah, I think
You're not convinced Le'Veon Bell is back to who he used to be?
Well, I just think the Chiefs don't strike me as a team that is going to be like, yeah, let's hand the ball off to a power running back for 20 carries, 15, 20 carries. And I feel like they have a good rookie running back in that Allaire from LSU that they seem to be really satisfied with. So I just don't – it didn't seem to make sense to me that he doesn't seem like a fit there to me.
I think they're going to throw the ball to him more than run specifically with him.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
So are the Jets – how much do you think the Jets are actually this bad and how much are they tanking?
I think they are tanking.
Okay.
So here's my 2 cents on what is happening, and you can call me far too optimistic.
Okay.
I think Joe Douglas has a head coach that everybody hates and wants to blame for this.
Yeah, Adam Gase.
Yep. And he is slowly trading away and cutting big-ticket individuals and gaining draft picks is what he's doing. At the end of the season or just before the season ends, he'll fire Adam Gase, bring in his own head coach because he didn't choose Gase, and then 2 to 3 years from now, we'll be the Kansas City Chiefs or something like that.
You heard it here first.
Yep.
When we're on episode like 212 or something, I guess that'd be like 4 years from now. But
yeah.
In any case, I admire your optimism.
That's the optimistic take.
I see.
The pessimistic take is like things are never going to get better.
Yeah.
We're just going to continue to get worse. And
Okay. It was a relatively slow college football weekend, except for the much anticipated Alabama-Georgia game, which was good for a half. Alabama trailed at the half by 4 to Georgia.
Nick Saban was not at the game, correct?
He was.
He was at the game.
Yes. So he had tested positive Thursday, I think. Tuesday. Probably Thursday. And since then, after that, he then had 3 negative COVID tests.
Okay.
So they cleared him to be back on the sidelines.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I remember so much talk about him not being on the sidelines.
No, he was definitely there.
It ate up a good portion of sports radio last year.
Yeah. Angry Nick Saban was there in full force.
Okay.
So I think the big takeaway from that is that Alabama has a terrific offense. Their defense is Georgia is just not ready for prime time at the quarterback position. They have a quarterback named Stetson Bennett IV.
Wait, his first name is Stetson?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, Stetson Bennett IV. Now, I would not expect Stetson Bennett IV to be my quarterback. I would expect him to be doing my taxes. I would expect him to come from Southern money, to be sure.
To be living off a trust fund.
Yes.
Yeah.
But not to be my quarterback of an SEC powerhouse.
He sounds like a guy you don't want to know who lives in the Hamptons, living off old money, doesn't he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And he's something like, I think they list him at 5'11", but he's probably not that. So anyway, other takeaways is that, and this will not satisfy some of our listeners here, but Notre Dame is overrated currently.
Really?
Yes. So after this weekend, they moved up to 3rd, even though they struggled to beat a 1-4 Louisville team at home. Beat them 12-7. No, either 12-7 or 15-7. One of those two.
Not good.
No, and trailed for a good chunk of that. So I think Notre Dame's a good football team, but they are not the 3rd best team in the country.
Yeah.
That's absurd. So, and finally, John, it's game week. The Buckeyes play.
Oh, the Big Ten's back.
The Big Ten comes back this upcoming weekend.
What are you doing to celebrate? What's the Saturday ritual going to look like for you and the fam?
We're going to be in front of the 65-inch TV in the basement.
Okay.
With the surround sound and listening to Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt call the game.
Any snack of choice, or are snacks avoided?
I don't tend to. It's hard for me to eat much before the game. Little pregame nerves.
You got the jitters.
Yeah. So yeah, I tend to avoid food. Ohio State enters that game against Nebraska a 21.5 point favorite. So theoretically, they should take care of business. So we'll see about that. And then, North Carolina, number 5 team in the country, they were also overrated as well. Lost to a 1-3 or 1-4 Florida State team.
Okay.
So anyway, and then the last sports note here, we've got the World Series set now. Tampa Bay Rays against the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah, it should be fun. Kind of two different systems there, right? The Dodgers have gone out and spent all this money.
Yeah.
And the Tampa Bay Rays have not. And they have taken we're going to spend as little as possible, but we're going to run the numbers and spend our money on analytics.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It should be fun to watch.
Absolutely. Got a pick in that?
Oh, my. I'm probably taking the Dodgers.
Okay. I'm going to go Rays.
You're going to go Rays?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know. I really don't know much. So it's, it's like flipping a coin here for me. I'm and so I'm putting this disclaimer out there. I can't take a lot of credit if they win, if the Rays win, but I'm also not going to take any heat for them losing since I'm flipping a coin. And
You're not a big baseball fan.
I'm not.
Okay.
I do like playoff baseball for the atmosphere and
it's
the
a lot
pressure.
of fun, but that's gone.
That's gone because you've got no fans.
So, can you name Dodgers players? How many? Can you name any Dodgers players at the moment?
Clayton Kershaw.
There we go.
Mookie Betts.
Mookie plays for the Dodgers.
Big money.
Yeah.
Big money Mookie.
Big money Mookie, that's right.
I don't think that's his actual nickname, but I know he signed like an absurd contract of something like $300-400 million.
Yeah, something baseball ginormous.
Yeah. I think that's probably it for me.
Okay, what about the Tampa Bay Rays?
I cannot name a single Tampa Bay Ray player.
I can name one because he was on my fantasy team this year.
Okay.
And he played really well. Brandon Lowe.
Okay.
Played really well.
I mean, your parents live in Tampa Bay.
My parents live in Tampa.
Which is in danger of becoming sort of the sports capital of the U.S. with the Lightning. Tampa Bay Lightning won the NHL championship, the Stanley Cup. And if the Rays win the World Series, and you've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are a serious Super Bowl contender this year.
Yeah, and the Super Bowl is in Tampa this year.
Yeah.
Yes, it will be the sports town where the winning team is always the second favorite team in town because everybody has, I moved here from so-and-so.
Right.
And, from such and such a place. And
yeah, there might be more Yankees fans there than Tampa Bay Rays fans.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
All right, well, it's time to move on to our main topic. Last week, Doc interviewed me for a grueling podcast interview.
Grueling,
hard-hitting.
Yes.
Asked the hard questions. And so today, for the remainder of the pod, really, we're going to ask Doc some questions and get to the truth. That's really what we're after here.
I mean, we are essentially an investigative journalist kind of podcast here.
Which is why I gave you the questions ahead of time. So one of the things we talked about last week, I grew up moving around the country. You grew up in a same house, I believe.
Actually, 2. Same town. But so I grew up in one house till I was like 5 or 6 and then moved to the house where my parents still currently live.
Okay, so talk to me about growing up in a town. What were the benefits, drawbacks?
Yeah, so the town that I grew up in, a small town called Napoleon, Ohio, German town named after a French dictator.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Probably population 10,000, so pretty small place. And there's some advantages of growing up in that kind of small town context. The fact that you pretty much knew most people in town or were, not far removed from them. And the fact that my grandfather was pretty well known in town meant that people kind of tended to know probably who I was because of that fact once they heard my last name.
And what did your grandfather do? Just for the listeners.
So he moved buildings for a living.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, a business that he inherited from his father. And so, he would raise up barns and move them around different properties. If someone wanted to put in a basement into their house, he would dig out underneath it, raise it up so they could then create the basement and then set it back down. Moved a lot of historical buildings. So if they were, if someone bought a piece of property that had kind of a historic building on it, they would move that historic building to somewhere else in the county to preserve it, but allow the new property owners to use the property. So, yeah.
And he was a pretty detailed guy. You found his, and I know you've mentioned this on a past pod episode, but you found his ledger basically from years ago. Could you talk about that maybe just a little bit?
Yeah, so he kept a daily work log or journal, essentially, of what he did pretty much every day that went back to, I think the earliest ones we had were like late 40s, early 50s.
Wow.
And so now 98% of that was work-related because he was a small businessman. And so it was, went out to this job, did these few things. But occasionally he'd put in personal notes, like things that happened in the family. So he would record significant events like Kate and I's wedding. They went down to Athens, Ohio, where we got married, the birth of grandchildren and that sort of stuff. So fun little windows into his life. But yeah, very detailed kind of guy. And was not a book smarts kind of guy, but sort of common sense and just figure things out. And the hardest working man I've ever known. And he worked until he died this January, but he probably worked up until about a year to a year and a half before that in some capacity. And he was 94 when he died.
Wow.
So he was just a beast.
Growing up in Napoleon, two things I want to mention.
Yeah.
Or two things I want to ask about. Tell me about the pizza. And
yes.
And tell me about high school sports. What was that like for you?
Sure. So when it comes to local pizza joints, there is this place called Hawk's Pizza in Napoleon there. And it is the best non-deep dish pizza on the face of the planet as far as I'm concerned. Great combination of cheese and sauce and toppings, all in that perfect proportion. So anytime we make it back to Napoleon, we pick up a pie to bring back with us.
It's a drive-through pickup.
It is.
It is
a drive-through that you go. It's kind of hard to describe. It's like this kind of pole barn / garagey kind of feel. You pull through. And they sell other stuff like, soda and beer and all that kind of stuff. But their main thing is the pizza. So yeah, it's a delightful piece of pizza that now you've got me hungry just thinking about it.
Well, I wanted to work in an ad for Hawk's Pizza. We're trying to get them to sponsor the pod. Yeah.
I'll have to reach out to them.
And high school sports, which ones did you play? Which ones did you enjoy?
Sure. So let's see. I played basketball through my sophomore year, and basketball was the most successful sport in our, historically speaking, of the main sports. We had an epically great water polo team.
Okay,
but there weren't a lot of schools that had pools, so that the population of water polo teams was not great in the state of Ohio necessarily.
Really, Northwest Ohio, really, huh?
So in any case, played basketball through my sophomore year and quit because my perception was that our coaching staff had basically picked the players they wanted to play, and it didn't matter how you performed in practice or in your opportunities. They were just going to stick with the guys that they had selected themselves. So it didn't feel like there was much opportunity to to move up, to improve, that kind of thing. So I left that after my sophomore year. I did run cross country for 4 years in high school. Our team made it to the state championship meet my sophomore and senior year, and then played tennis all 4 years as well. Actually had never played competitive tennis till I tried out for the team on my freshman year. And that was a lot of fun. My senior year, so in tennis, once you get to like the sectionals and districts and stuff, they no longer have team competitions. It's just individuals or doubles teams. So me and my doubles partner, we won a sectional championship.
Nice.
And we're one match away from making it to state. Lost in the district championship, which would have gotten us into the state tournament.
It still hurts. I can see it in your eyes.
A little bit of a sting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for bringing it up.
That's okay. That's okay.
Talk to me. So you went to Ohio University.
I did.
In Athens, Southeast. Did I get that right?
Yep.
Yes, Southeast Ohio. That seems like an odd spot for a kid from Northwest Ohio to go with so many colleges in between. Why OU?
So I would say the main reason is that when I was finishing up high school, I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. And Ohio University has an excellent telecommunications broadcasting program. So that was probably the main reason for going there. It helped that two of my best friends also were going there. And it's just a beautiful campus. It's one of the most beautiful campuses you'll ever see. It sits in the foothills of Appalachia in southeast Ohio. And it dates back to, I think it's the oldest public university in the Northwest Territory. So, I mean, it's been around forever, much longer than even Ohio State. And so it has a very classic collegiate feel, beautiful brick building set in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. It's a beautiful place.
Now, you got your degree in sports broadcasting, correct?
I did.
Now, you have not profited from that until you started doing the Various and Sundry podcast, correct?
Well, I mean, I did do some sports broadcasting in college, but I did not profit from that. That's correct. Though I'm not aware that I'm profiting off of this either. So.
No, it's costing us money. That's what's happening. Could you talk about because now you're a professor of New Testament, which seems very different from sports broadcasting.
Yeah, reasonably different.
Could you talk us through just like vocationally? How'd you get there?
Yeah. So I was probably I think it was in my sophomore year at OU when I really sensed God calling me into some form of ministry. I had been involved in, at the time, Campus Crusade for Christ, now just Cru. And through my involvement with that, it just seemed like God was leading me more towards the path of ministry. So at that point, I decided – by then it didn't make sense for me to really change my major because my major had so many elective hours available to me that I could take anything I wanted.
Sure.
And it would have probably lengthened my stay to switch to a major or something else. So I took 2 years of Greek, took several unnecessary communications classes because I thought they would help me. And so my involvement with Cru gave me opportunities to lead Bible studies, do evangelism, do some discipleship. And it was really in the course of that, through some discipleship, that God began to identify some gifts and some interests, such as in the areas of teaching and even being able to write to some degree, that others began to affirm. And so I began to think long term at that point, I think God's probably calling me to some kind of ministry where I get to teach and maybe do some writing. And I at the time I thought, that's probably going to be something academic, but I knew that I wanted to get some ministry experience, some full-time ministry experience. So when I graduated from OU, I went on staff with Cru, where for 5 years I did evangelism and discipleship on campus there, actually back at my alma mater, Ohio University. And that was a great experience to interact with secular college students, get opportunities to continue to grow in my ability to teach and to do those kinds of things. And it was really through that process that the Lord led me to move on to seminary in the year 2000. So I went on to my MDiv at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School and did my PhD at Wheaton. And even just getting into the Wheaton program was no guarantee. Even though the program had just started up, they take like 6 students a year.
Wow.
And really you apply to work with a chosen mentor. So, the guy I wanted to work with was Doug Moo, and he was taking 2 students that year. So I'm competing with all these other people for 2 spots to work with Doug Moo. And God opened that door, thankfully, and got in there. But then, you get on the other end of your PhD, and my goodness, the job market was better then than it is now, but it still wasn't great. And so I knew plenty of guys who had PhDs and were excellent writers, thinkers, scholars, and good teachers, and didn't have teaching jobs as full-time professors. So I felt very blessed that God opened this particular door here at Grace, even though I didn't know a lot about Grace when I took the position here, and been here ever since. This is year 15 now.
And what song did your wife start singing when you rolled into Warsaw, Indiana?
I believe it would be John Cougar Mellencamp's Small Town.
Yeah. I enjoy that story. Okay, so I want to do some listener questions, and I put it out on Twitter yesterday afternoon, which I know you saw.
I did.
I have 4 sports questions and 3 theology questions. I'm thinking of going every other one.
Sure.
Just to see how many we can get through.
Okay.
Before we hit the magic time.
Okay.
So we'll start with the sports one.
Okay.
And this may be difficult for you. Some of these are just mean, honestly. So just a heads up. Favorite player who played for one of your rival teams.
Yeah.
Now, they didn't come out and say Michigan, but
that team up north, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the obvious one.
It does feel like that's what they're indicating. And that's from Lee in Indiana, who we know likes to stick a knife and twist it a little bit.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I'll refrain from the snarky comment I had in mind there. In any case, I think if you're going to force me to pick a player from the team up north, I would probably go the basketball route and say Trey Burke.
Oh, Trey Burke, the point guard.
Yeah, he was a lot of fun to watch. I remember he hit a shot, probably like a 25 or 30-foot shot in the NCAA tournament, I think against Kansas, that sent the guy, maybe the Elite Eight that year, that sent the game to overtime, which they won later. And he's an Ohio kid.
I think so you're slipping it in the back door there. Yeah. Nice work.
Grew up in Columbus area. But in any case, he was fun to watch. And when I was younger, also on the basketball front, Glenn Rice. Do you recognize that name?
I do recognize that name.
Played for them. Was a fun watch in terms of basketball. So, on the football front, the only player that I could think of. All the players on the football front, I liked watching because I thought they were going to make mistakes that benefited Ohio State. So they had a quarterback a couple of years ago named John O'Corn, who was especially mistake prone. So anyway.
Okay. In the theology ministry Bible region.
I'll go theology ministry for 200, John.
Yeah. Well, do you have a favorite Bible translation? And I assume they're meaning an English translation.
Yeah, I assume so as well. I teach out of the English Standard Version.
Okay.
For many years, I did the New American Standard Version, but found that the New American Standard was a bit stilted. It was so wooden as to keeping slavishly with the original Greek and Hebrew text that it became challenging to read a lot of times in English. And the NIV was a little too paraphrastic at points for my preference. So the ESV was a nice sweet spot.
Okay. Any others that you use regularly?
Well, I do often consult the CSB, the Christian Standard Bible. Find it to be an excellent translation as well.
Okay, good. That was the one I was looking for. Okay, so switching back to sports, and again, this is just mean. Worst sports memory, one that still hurts to remember.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, they're really digging in here.
They're digging in,
and that's Chris, by the way.
Yeah, Chris in Indiana.
So Lee and Chris hurting you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the most recent one is Ohio State losing to Clemson last year in the college football playoff semifinals, because I was convinced that Ohio State was the better team. And although they didn't lose because of the officiating was a significant factor in the outcome of the game. That was disappointing. Ohio State still should have won despite that, but they didn't play well enough to overcome that.
So that one's fresh.
Very fresh.
Do you have any like long-standing wounds that we should know about?
Well, I think that I would go with the when Ohio State lost to the team up north in 1998, when I also was convinced they had the best team in the country. That was during the Cooper years, where I could have picked just about any year during the 90s when John Cooper was the coach of Ohio State, where in probably 7 of those 10 years, Ohio State had the better team on paper. It was a higher ranked team, and they couldn't beat that team up north. So painful.
Okay. Thanks for going to that deep, scary place for us.
Yeah.
We appreciate
that.
Yeah.
Sorry I didn't use my vulnerability voice there.
But. Theology, ministry, Bible. Your son's throwing you. We have 3 from your boy here, and he's just throwing softballs. So favorite living preacher.
Yeah, that's a challenging one. I don't know if I can narrow it down to one. John Piper has had a profound influence on me in a lot of ways, and I've enjoyed a lot of his preaching. But I tried to think in terms of if I went to like a T4G conference and I could only hear one guy, who would I want to hear? Mm-hmm. And this might be a little surprising to some, but I'd probably go with KDY, Kevin DeYoung.
Oh, Kevin DeYoung. I thought you said Katie.
No.
And I was like, who?
KDY.
Kevin DeYoung.
Yes.
Okay.
He is a great blend of attention to the text, thoughtfulness, clarity, a great mixture of humor at the appropriate time so it's not distracting, and he's not flashy. Mm-hmm. He's not a big personality where you're like, wow, he's so compelling as this personality, Sometimes, I just have a bent against those kinds of preachers typically, even if their content is really good. So I guess I'll probably lean that way.
KDY. I remember going to T4G with you, and I remember you mentioning that KDY was your favorite while we were there. All right, another softball in the sports arena from your son. Pick a professional team. You're normally a college individual. You enjoy your college sports. You don't often pick a professional team to root for. If you had to pick one, what would it be?
Yeah, that is challenging. I mean, if I had to pick one, it would almost certainly be a Cleveland team, since it's from the state of Ohio, and that would be challenging. It'd have to come down to either the Browns or the Cavs.
Now, you do have family that works for the Cavs.
I do. So, yeah, I don't know if that tips the scales in that direction or not, but historically speaking, the Browns are the more significant franchise, even though even though in the Super Bowl era they've not had great success, but in like the decade before,
Sure.
they were incredibly successful. Have a number of NFL championships from that era. So I suppose if you had to force me to pick a pro sports team to be aggressively following, I guess I'd probably go with the Browns.
Wow. Okay. Went over blood there. All right.
Yeah.
Didn't see that coming. Okay. So final question in the theology ministry area. This comes from Pastor Chase of Fort Wayne. Now, I'm going to give you 3 categories and 3 theologians, and you got to put each of these theologians in one of the category. You can't double up.
Okay.
Study with one, listen to one preach, and write a book with one. Don Carson, D.A. Carson, Doug Moo, and Beale, G.K. Beale.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good question. Now, I feel like I can answer this 2 different ways because I've essentially done these things or close. So, basically, I can answer it one way and say I've done – if you want to say what I've done, I studied with Doug Moo at Wheaton, and obviously I've listened to Don Carson preach. And I've essentially, at some level, kind of written a book with G.K. Beale. He wrote an introductory chapter in the Making All Things New book that I co-wrote with Ben Glad. Now, if we want to mix it up a little bit, I think I would – studying under either Carson or Beale would be a terrifying thing. Beale is an incredibly demanding doctoral mentor, but the kind of scholars he produces is impressive. So that'd be certainly worth it. I don't know about. I really haven't heard either Moo or Beale preach in a formal church context. I've heard them obviously speak in academic contexts, but.
And we had Doug Moo on campus here a number of years ago.
Yeah. So he spoke on it was creation care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a couple of years ago. So he's a very tall man as well, Doug Moo. He's like 6'7", 6'7".
Yeah,
big guy. So I think I'd probably go that way. I can't say enough about how much I enjoyed studying under Doug Moo. He was the perfect blend of rigorous scholarship, but personal care for me. I really appreciated that.
So could you be more specific? How are you outlining these? Who are you studying with? Who you listen to preach? And who are you writing a book with?
Yeah. Okay. So I gave my sort of I've already done this version.
Sure.
So
sure. That's the least interesting version, I think.
Yeah. Okay, let's do it this way then. I would go with study with Carson, listen to Beale preach, and write a book with Moo.
Yeah. I thought that might be the way you go. Okay. Last sports question, and then it's time to move on.
Okay.
Favorite Buckeye?
Yeah.
This is a softball from your son again.
Yeah, but see, it's not because that's tough to pick one out of there. I would. There's so many great ones. I would probably either have to narrow it down to Eddie George.
Okay, running back.
Yep, or Orlando Pace.
Okay, offensive tackle.
He was the most dominant offensive lineman I've ever seen. He looked like, even at the college level, he looked like he was a grown man, oftentimes playing against junior high kids in terms of just absolutely dominating them. More recently, I've enjoyed watching Chase Young and the Bosa brothers on the defensive line. They're just amazing players. So.
Yeah. But it says favorite. You got to pick one.
All right, give me Eddie George.
Okay, Eddie George it is. All right, and that's all our questions. You're off the hot seat. Whew. Congratulations, you've survived.
Yeah, that was close. And no tears.
No tears.
I made it through without crying. So So we're at episode 42. So we gotta come up with an athlete here. And unlike previous numbers, we actually have some reasonably good options here. So the starting point here is Jackie Robinson, obviously well known for his breaking of the color barrier in baseball.
And three-sport athlete, I think, at UCLA as well. He was
a terrific athlete.
He was very, very good. Yeah.
Also on the West Coast, Ronnie Lott, legendary safety for the San Francisco 49ers.
And finished his career with the Jets, in fact.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard stories of him about breaking fingers or dislocating fingers in the middle of games and just sort of popping them back into place. And
and he's famous for the shoulder underneath the chin,
yeah.
right? He would throw that shoulder and just knock guys out.
He was brutal. And then Mariano Rivera. I know it pains you to mention him since he was a
Yankee,
legendary Yankee, but one of the great closers in Major League Baseball history.
Perhaps the greatest closer, yeah.
And then James Worthy, Laker great, played at North Carolina with Michael Jordan as well. Terrific power forward, very skilled, very athletic.
Yeah, very good.
And then in terms of Ohio State, Paul Warfield was a legendary halfback / wide receiver in the 60s. And then more recently, Bobby Carpenter was a terrific linebacker for Ohio State from 2002 to 2005. Had his professional career cut short by injuries, but very athletic linebacker there. So who you got?
It's hard to pick against Jackie.
Yeah.
It's hard to pick against Jackie Robinson.
I agree. So let's go with that.
Okay. Doc, one thing you like this week. Why don't you lead us off?
Yeah, so this past weekend here, we're recording on a Monday, we took some stuff down to our son, John, who moved to Indy recently. And after we dropped the stuff off at his place, we went out to his favorite burger joint there in Indianapolis called Bub's Burgers.
Bub's? I've never heard of Bub's.
It's very good. Burgers, they have different sizes of burgers. So they go, third of a pound, or it's like quarter of a pound, third of a pound, half pound, and then pound.
Oh, gosh.
So terrific burgers, lots of good options. But even better, the waffle fries. I'm generally not a huge waffle fry guy, but these were by far the best waffle fries I have ever had.
Really?
Perfect combination of seasoning and crispiness without it being like crunchy.
Yeah.
Just delightful. So fun to go there. And it's the location we went to is right in this nice kind of downtown area in Carmel that's got a nice bike and walking path there and lots of nice shops and that kind of thing. So fun little area.
Very nice.
Yeah. What about you?
My one thing is Andrew and I really stayed in this weekend, and we did homemade apple cider.
Okay.
So chopped up apples, put them in a stock pot, and just cooked it on low for a few hours. And
this was a weekend for hot apple cider.
It was a great weekend for hot apple cider. So we did that, and that was quite enjoyable.
Yeah. Good. Your culinary skills continue to expand, John.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. I'm becoming domestic,
Yeah. How much of this is COVID related and how much of this is just kind of don't take this the wrong way, but like growing up, like just getting older. Not growing up in the sense of you weren't grown up before this, but just like you find as you get older, you find certain things enjoyable that before you would have been like, why is that enjoyable when you were a younger person?
I think part of it's COVID. I think the other part of it is I've just begun to look at things and go, well, why can't I do that from scratch? And just Googling it and figuring out how was it done. And then if it looks simple, doing it.
That's a big thing for you. That's a big
I
part
do that
of your personality
Yeah.
of how do I figure out how to do this? Find a YouTube video, Google it, and give it a shot yourself.
It keeps things interesting.
Yeah, that's one of your many admirable qualities. I appreciate that about you. So,
All right. Well, here we are.
yeah, are we at mission accomplished here?
I think so. I think we've
Yeah.
done it.
Okay. Well, So I guess there's really, not much else to do other than to say mission accomplished. And until next time, the Lord bless y'all real good.
Later.